101-year-old World War II veteran Sidney Walton led a motorcade from Arlington to New York City. This parade commemorates the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II. And on this Veterans Day, the National Museum of the United States Army is now open to the public.
That's right. This is years in the making. ABC 7's Tom Rousey is live there now with how today's opening went. And Tom, I was out there last week for a preview, and I know you would agree with me. It's so awe-inspiring that this is the real deal. These are mostly not replicas. They're authentic artifacts.
And everything is authentic, Allison, as you were saying there. For instance, the uniforms, and they really are committed to telling the story of the men and the women. This is a female soldier on patrol in Iraq that they're displaying here, but real uniforms as well, real weapons also. Back here you see the weapons, you also see uniforms from Iraq. It's all part of a museum that opened this afternoon.
And with that, the National Museum of the United States Army officially opened on Veterans Day.
There's incredible stories about soldiers here that need to be told.
The $400 million museum is the first ever dedicated to the entire story of the Army.
This is not just the Army's museum, it's America's museum.
It was supposed to open June 4th, but COVID changed those plans. This ceremony was supposed to be outside, but the rain changed those plans. Because of the pandemic, tickets need to be reserved online to limit the number of visitors.
It's going to take some time for us to work our way through the COVID, but this country, our Army, knows how to overcome adversity.
The museum tells the Army's history from before there was a United States through more modern wars like Iraq and Afghanistan. There's a focus on realism, from real vehicles and aircraft used in conflicts to real emotions on the faces of soldiers.
And as you walk through, it almost feels like, oh, wait a minute, I was there and I can see that uniform that I wore. That's my uniform. It's almost like they took it out of my closet.
Organizers say about half the $400 million budget came from the Army, half from donations. It will be open 9 to 5 every day of the year except Christmas.
And earlier, Allison, you talked about real artifacts. Well, this is a real Bradley fighting vehicle that was used in Iraq. It was actually placed here before they even built the museum. They had to put this in first. They say they're also committed to telling stories that sometimes are a little tough to tell. This is the Afghanistan exhibit over here. And on the end here, this motorcycle, it's a real motorcycle that was used by the Taliban to deliver bombs. And in addition, even at the floor, they have exhibits there below me here. These are IEDs. It's an exhibit about IEDs that U.S. soldiers in the Army had to deal with while they were in Afghanistan. So just so much here. Again, a $400 million museum opening today. And you got to go online to reserve those tickets because they have to limit the crowds for the pandemic.
You're about to open this museum. How are you feeling?
Honored, proud, excited, a whole myriad of emotions.
So it's been almost 6 years since you got this position. Is there anything that you're experiencing now that maybe is a surprise, or that you didn't, like when you looked back and said someday this is going to actually open?
Sure.
And now here we are. Is there anything that's unexpected for you?
No, not really. I mean, the team that has been behind this, the over 35 stakeholder groups that have been involved in this, the passion that everybody had towards this, we all knew it was going to happen. And it's just really been such an incredible journey and experience to lead this effort.
And what for you is the most exciting part of this finally opening to the public?
Just to be open and allow our American citizens and visitors to come in and learn about our American Army and the American soldier.
Is there something that has been sort of your guiding mission from the beginning about what you wanted this to ultimately be?
Sure. So you know, mixed into all of the planning, all of the studies, hiring the staff, we, and I say it collectively because it's not just been me, have had the vision of what you see now, and we've just stuck to that.
And what is it? I know, at least when you initially walk in, you see the soldiers' stories,
yes,
and that everything does ultimately come back to the story of the people who served.
Yes.
How do you make that happen when in fact you're also displaying these huge artifacts and things that can sort of overpower a soldier's story? Why was that important to keep that going?
So I think it's because the Army is the soldier. That is the most basic premise of our force. And so to always draw the information and the story back to the individual soldier to tell those larger stories, that's what is so important.
When you grew up an Army brat, would you have ever thought that one day you would be here, head of this museum?
I don't think so. In fact, I was just talking to my sister the other day. We had kind of resurrected some of our old vinyl, right? And she came across our 45 with Donny Osmond. And so when I was growing up in the Army, Donny Osmond was my focus.
Not one day leading.
Not one day leading the National Museum.
What would your father say?
Oh. Well, my father does say that he is extraordinarily proud, and I am of him and his service to this country. And as a soldier, truly a soldier for life, he continues to be extraordinarily active and serve his local community, serve nationally. He is the president of the National Infantry Division Association, and he continues to be active and love his soldiers.
Oh, wonderful. How old is he now?
He is 81.
Oh, wow. So he has had the opportunity to watch you do this job. How wonderful.
Yes.
And what does he think about his daughter sort of leading this charge? When he was coming up in the Army,
right.
Women weren't necessarily in leadership roles.
Right, yeah. So again, very proud and just pleased, pleased. And I attribute my ability to do this job with my upbringing and my parents and growing up in the Army, the ability to be resilient, to be agile. I attribute my success here to my parents.
And what about your 2 years in the Army? What was that experience like, and what have you looked back on about that time as you're putting this museum together?
So sure, I truly believe that any experience that we have along our life path gives us feedback, gives us perspective, and serving in the Army, being a soldier, being willing to raise my hand to serve this nation, that makes me incredibly proud.
So what about people who have no connection to the military? Nobody's served in their family. They don't have that commonality with what's here. Why should they come here? What can they get from an experience here?
So I think that the mission performed by the Army and the American soldier is so important to be understood by our citizens, to learn its history, to see themselves in the reflection of our soldiers, to understand that American soldiers are American citizens and that they serve this nation and they serve you as an individual citizen. That's what is so important for them to come and visit and to understand.
And I know they were telling me earlier, one of the exhibits in particular talks about how American society and the Army have paralleled each other. Maybe one time the Army sets a tone and society follows, or vice versa. And is that something that people can take away from this?
Absolutely. So, beyond the chronological history of the Army in the chronological galleries, we have that standalone gallery called Army and Society, where it explores that symbiotic relationship between the Army and American citizen. As the organization, the oldest organization of this nation, to see that relationship and how it formed, and to see the many ways that the Army has led and continues to lead as we make changes as a society.
So, as you said, the oldest branch of the military, right? But the last one to get its museum. So do you feel like, oh, finally, it's time?
Yes, absolutely. It's important to have this national landmark. The Army has a variety of wonderful museums across the United States and around the world throughout the Army Museum enterprise. And those museums tell the in-depth stories of specific units and specific branches. And that's why it's so wonderful here that the way we tell the history is through those individual soldier stories.
And what about, I know in your top leadership here, there are quite a few women.
Yes.
How did that come about, and what do you think that brings to the table?
So it's important to me as a female leader to ensure that I very proactively have a diverse staff, and that I have individuals who contribute from their own experiences and their own perspectives. And the fact that we need to look different, we need to be able to explore our operational issues from a wide variety of perspectives. And that's what everybody brings to the table. They bring their own unique perspective and experience, and they make me think of things that I wouldn't have thought on my own.
So it's a concerted effort.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
What is your favorite thing in this museum? Do you have one?
It's so hard to pinpoint one. I would say collectively the exhibits, the artifacts, those personal stories. There's so many that are, I get asked all the time, what's your favorite artifact? Oh my goodness, there's so many of them. And then I like I love the Experiential Learning Center and what that's going to offer to visitors, to be able to get some hands-on experience about learning a soldier skill. And again, tying back to opening up opportunities and considering opportunities for our visitors.
And finally, is there an exhibit or something? I know when he explained to me that boat from D-Day was authentic, which I just imagined automatically that it was a recreation.
Mm-hmm.
And then you catch your breath. Like, is there anything in there that you have that sort of palpable feeling of like, wow? Sure.
The Cobra King, right, in the World War II gallery. In the Nation Overseas gallery that we focus on World War I, the jackets from the Myers brothers, 3 jackets from 3 brothers, all serving in World War I in different divisions. And when I go to that display and read those labels on those 3 jackets, I think about that mom, right? That mom that had 3 sons overseas at the same time, and they all came back home. And that's an amazing story.
Mm-hmm. You have kids of your own?
I have a daughter.
Okay.
Yes.
Any military service yet, or interest?
No. She's very interested in serving, just not through the military.
But you understand as a mom that experience?
Absolutely.